So what do we do? If I'm going to survive or even maybe thrive or certainly hit my goals, Gary, in this shifted market, are there some very specific things I should do?
Well, you kind of, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The first thing we have to understand is what's our defense and what's our offense. Okay. From a defensive standpoint, Dave, you're going to have to switch your gears a little bit because you've been using expenses as an offensive weapon. You've been
my marketing materials and my...
Well, you've been spending money. In prosperous times, essentially...
Spending money in my business.
Well, in prosperous times, the seeds of, problems, right, are usually sown during prosperous times, right? As the old saying goes, the seeds of failure are sown during good times.
Yes.
Okay. What they mean by that is that during prosperous times, we use expenses as an offensive weapon. We spend money. We spend money. We put money at it, and we're not that accountable all the time to it because we have some excess money.
Yeah.
And we're seeing everything rise, and everything around us is hitting our sensors saying growth, 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 and we're spending.
And we're going for growth.
And if we're making $1, and we're making a reasonable $1, we're going, I have the money.
I got it.
And I have some pent-up desire to spend some money anyway, and so now that I have a few bucks, I'm spending it. So we've been using expenses as an offensive weapon.
Okay.
Now, by the way, when the market shifts, by gosh, you better use expenses as a defensive weapon. Meaning you better set up a perimeter where you can do business at a very affordable level. You better be able to
drop your expenses.
You better pull them back.
Okay.
You better pull them back. If the market drops by 30%, that means the available income in the market dropped by 30%. Now, I have a question for you. If you can't immediately get a disproportionate share of the market overnight, you're going to have a gap between what you're...
First of all, I'm going to lose 30%, and if that's my profit margin, it's gone.
Well, you're going to have a gap between... Yeah, you're going to have a gap between your income and your expense that you can't fix immediately if you can't drop the expense. Because you can't fix the income gap immediately.
I got it.
You cannot solve that like that, and it's solved.
You can solve it, but not immediately.
But you can solve the if you have paid attention to how you've spent money, and you have not gotten loaded up on fixed expense, you can pull the variables back with
variables would be like my advertising budget, staffing, perhaps. But the fix is going to be like anything I'm contractually committed to, right?
That's a fixed expense. Yeah, anything that you are contractually obligated to that you can't get out of is a fixed expense. And we have to make sure that that is a reasonable amount. That's a reasonable amount of money given the market. Okay. Now, we don't want to just willy-nilly get rid of things, get rid of expenses that actually we'll need as an offensive strategy.
Okay.
We just need to make sure that we can afford the drop while we regroup. The biggest challenge that we have as an agent is that when the market drops, let's say by 30% or 40%,
because that's happening for sure, or more,
or more. There's a lag time between when it drops and when the number of agents chasing the number of deals available drops as well. They were predicting, I remember back in the 90s, and I would sit there and go, on what basis are you predicting this? And they were saying that the number of realtors in NAR was going to drop. This is for America.
And that was when it was around 700,000.
Oh, they say it's going to drop.
It's going to drop. Yeah.
What happened?
It doubled.
It doubled. It literally doubled. And no one ever wants to talk about how wrong everyone was who said that. I remember when they were saying that, I was scratching my head going, on what basis are you saying it's going to drop? Well, here's the thing now.
Well, because your experience had been when markets get good, more people come into the business. That had been your experience.
That's the only experience you need to have.
That when the market went down with a lag, the number of agents went down.
That's it.
So if the market's climbing, the number of agents.
That's the way this all operates. You don't need to hear or listen to anything else. Right. The number of people that you have in the profession, in the marketplace, is a direct result of how much money is available. Now, what's happening is people are entering the market based on the perceived amount of money available.
There was a lot there, and now it's less.
Well, and they haven't clued in on that.
I understand.
So here's what's going to happen. We still have people entering the business in a declining available income market.
Yes.
That creates a problem for a real estate agent and for their real estate office for some period of time. Now, is this a 90-day? Is this 120-day? Is this 6 months? Is this a year? Is this a year and a half to 2 years? I don't know how long it takes each market before all of a sudden there starts becoming an exodus out of the business.
Well, as an agent, do I have to wait till that lag happens before I can be successful?
No. You immediately respond to this by getting those expenses back down.
So number one is get expenses.
Yeah, I got to turn that into a defensive position for me now. I've got to get my expenses down as tight as I can. By the way, don't cut your training. The thing that blows my mind is the first thing people do is they cut the training. And what they don't realize is that's the one thing you never cut. Doesn't matter what the market is, you never cut that.
It's what keeps your skills up and ready, particularly for a changing market.
Well, it's like turning to your kids and saying, look, I'm making less money this year, so you don't get to go to high school.
Right.
Now, what parent said that?
No,
they would hawk everything they had, Dave, to keep the kid in school because they understand the value of education.
Yes.
And yet, in their own life, they would turn around and hawk the education and keep everything else.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It just infuriates me and drives me crazy when I see people immediately say, well, I can't afford that, I can't afford that. By the way, if you can't fly, drive.
Yeah.
And if you can't drive, take a bus.
Yeah.
There is a means and a method that you can get to the training you need, or get on the telephone, do what you need to do. I remember, and I've been in the real estate industry since the late 70s, and I've gone through a decent amount of these kind of situations. And I'll assure you, the one thing I never did was I didn't cut education. If anything, I beefed it up.
And the best agents are the ones who keep going to education, aren't they? You just see it. I mean, the ones that are successful are the ones who are going to more training, though you would think they need it less than the ones that are doing less.
No, they need it, one, for the positive information they're going to get, and number two, they need it for the strategic information they're going to get.
What do you mean strategic?
Well, number one, they need to get it for the positive reinforcement and the understanding that people have lived before you, and this has happened before. Number two, they need to hear the specific strategies and tactics that people are using. What to do. This isn't the first time this has happened.
Absolutely.
We have been here multiple times before. Now, the interesting thing is since the membership of our NAR, not Canada, but just in NAR alone, has doubled in the last 10 to 15 years, what do you think the likelihood that 60 or 70% of the people in our industry have ever seen a down market?
Oh, I think it's probably at least 70, maybe 75. Have never seen a down market.
Okay, so the headlines in the Realtor magazine ought to say clueless.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ought to be clueless.
Right.
And then the next line ought to be, these people have never seen a recession.
Yeah.
They don't know what a recession in this industry looks like, feels like, or what to do with it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the issue that we have here is that we have an economy that is actually going through a very good, excellent cycle right now.
Why do you say excellent?
Well, because the economies for the U.S. and Canada right now are not down.
Oh, I see. Economies are
our issue,
strictly housing.
And housing may drag our own economy down.
Yeah.
And by the way, all bets are truly off
if that happens.
If the housing and the financing industry right now pull the economy into it ahead of schedule. Now, understand something. If you go back to dense, roaring 2000s...
You've been talking about that book for 5 years, 6 years.
And ever since he wrote it.
Yeah.
And the point that he made was that you can predict economic cycles to a certain degree based upon the spending patterns of age groups.
Okay.
It's just a simple concept. You can go study the past and you can see that you have a time in your life for this, a time in your life for this, and a time in life for this, and you can predict spending patterns, big spending patterns, based upon that. And he simply looked up and said, look, you have the baby boomers,
right?
And these baby boomers are spending money in a certain way as they go through their cycle. And here's how they're spending it right now. And this is the largest single group, right,
of population increase in the country. Yes, in the country's history, recent history.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And that group is ending the end of their peak spending.
Productive and spending years.
That's it.
When?
That's it.
When are they ending it?
Well, they're going to end it in the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. So by the end of the decade.
Yeah. Now, the only thing that might extend that is the fact that they say that the new 40 is 50 and the new 50 is 60.
Yeah. Retirement won't happen as early.
Yeah, and as a result, the baby boomers may, in fact, extend this a little. This may be, but you know what? Ignore that conversation. That can do nothing but put you in harm's way.
Because their spending patterns could change even though they stayed working.
You're guessing.
You're guessing.
You're guessing. Well, you don't know this. What we know is the past. And when the past repeats itself over and over, we call it a cycle, and we call that a predictable cycle that we could possibly base the future on.
Yep.
An aberration or something that may change, you're better off just staying away from. That's an intellectual conversation that won't put $1 in your pocket today, so stay away from it.